am honored and privileged to introduce our speaker this evening, Madam Christina Chanya. She is the principal psychologist or project lead at Lenju Consult. As a psychologist, she has been providing holistic three-tier mental wellness support system, carrying out sensitization campaigns aimed at increasing prevention measures, encouraging early and appropriate medical interventions, and reducing stigma associated with mental illness. She has corporate experience in strategy development and execution, business analysis, project planning and implementation, monitoring and evaluation. She is a licensed psychologist. She holds a master's degree in counseling psychology, a bachelor's degree in sociology, and postgraduate diploma in HR management. She is also an international certified addiction professional. So my good people, you are in very, very good hands. And Christina.
Yeah, so now COVID has also, one of the issues that COVID has brought to us is the issue of unemployment. There's been lockdowns and I mean, it has really impacted us negatively. People have lost their jobs. And unemployment is actually a very, very stressful situation. When you lose your job, it's not just the loss of income. You suffer from multiple losses. So you suffer from a loss of identity. You know, when you go to work, you're identified as someone. Grace is a training manager, for example. That's your identity, yeah? There's you have a sense of purpose. When you go to work, you know, as a training manager, this is what I do. This is what gives me meaning. You know, when you're working, for example, you have a structure in place, yeah? So you know that from 8 to 5, I'll be somewhere. And this is what I'll be doing during that time. So you tend to lose all these things when you lose your job. Now, what are some of the psychological impacts that we face with regards to job loss? So we suffer from depression. When you lose your job, you will get depressed. There's a lot of anxiety because you don't know where your next meal will come. You don't know how you're going to pay your bills, yeah? You don't even know when you're going to get another job because already the job market is, should I say, flooded. And of course, because of the economic situation in the world, it's very difficult to get employed. So you can end up getting irritable. You can end up experiencing a lot of sadness and anger. And even when you're faced with the possibility of losing a job, these are some of the feelings or some of the psychological experiences you will have, yeah? Now, what are some of the external COVID-19 challenges and the effects? We all know that with COVID, there's been a lot of panic and anxiety, yeah? We are asking ourselves, how long are we going to live this way? How long will we stay masked? We have all these myths and misconceptions about COVID. There's so many mutations. You don't know what will happen to us with those mutations. We have, you know, the vaccines. We're asking ourselves so many questions about the vaccines. Basically, you have a lot of information overload, yeah? You know, we are looking at statistics. People are dying. We want to know what is the infectivity rate, yeah? People are dying all over the world. People are dying in our country. We want to know all that. And then people are also, I mean, we are also getting all this negative news from, you know, all over social media. And this only serves to make us panic and it increases our anxiety. We also fear losing our loved ones, of course, and getting infected because we really don't know how COVID will interact with us. Yeah, there are people, right now we are seeing young people dying of COVID. Initially, we'd think that, or rather we thought that it's only old people or people with comorbidities who were going to die, but now we are seeing something very different. And that only serves to raise our anxiety levels. There's also increase in suicide cases, of course, because of all the challenges and because of all the challenges that we are facing right now. And because of also, because of depression, it really has increased the suicide cases. There are high stress levels. People are highly stressed and they have no outlet. You know, people are socially isolated, people are withdrawn. So it's caused a lot of problems. Now, another way that COVID has affected us externally, this is external, outside of the workplace, is that many people are suffering from non-communicable diseases. And because of that, you find that because of the fear of COVID, you find that people are not visiting hospitals, and so their non-communicable diseases or tend to get worse. So if you're having diabetes, if you're having hypertension, and you do not manage it properly, then you find that you're basically increasing your risk of death and even risk of severe disease. Now, the impact of COVID has also triggered mental illnesses. I'll discuss a little bit more about that. And it has also worsened the pre-existing mental illnesses. So if you already have depression or anxiety and other mental illnesses, and if you're not going to hospital for management, then they will worsen with time. We also have seen an increase in the use of alcohol and other substances of abuse. So here we are seeing people using a lot of alcohol being the most common substance of abuse. People are abusing prescription pills like sleeping pills because they are unable to sleep well because of anxiety, because of depression and high stress levels. Now, we belong to the vulnerable groups. You're a pregnant woman, you're a breastfeeding mother, you have comorbidities. Of course, you'll have high stress levels, and this will impact even how you behave at work. We're also taking care of elderly parents, and we are worried about them. We are worried that if they get sick, probably they might not make it. So we want to keep them safe. Sometimes it's a bit challenging to also keep them safe, depending on our circumstances. So all these things raise our anxiety levels. We are also experiencing multiple deaths. People are dying right now. So many people are dying, and because also of high stress levels, people have lost their jobs. You find that people are not able to tolerate, they have a low tolerance to stress, and therefore some might resort to violence because of course, they are unable to self-regulate. And then we have also the stigma and discrimination surrounding COVID. People are still stigmatizing COVID. Some people say there's no COVID. So if they know that you have COVID, then of course people stigmatize you and start treating you differently. What are some of the internal COVID-19 challenges? Now, this is at the workplace. I've already talked about job losses because of the economic situations. We have lockdowns, we have people being asked to work from home. Businesses are not doing so well because of COVID, the tourism industry, for example, the hospitality industry. So there's so many people who have lost their jobs. There are people whose jobs are threatened. So they don't know if they'll have their jobs in the next, few weeks. They don't know if they'll have their jobs by the end of the year. And this causes a lot of stress. It causes a lot of anxiety. People are also taking pay cuts, so there's reduced income. Now, working from home also has got its own challenges. So people are missing work targets. When we have curfews, it means that we will have to work within a short period of time, and we're expected to deliver the same results. So you find that when you miss work targets, of course, you'll get into trouble at work, and this will also heighten your anxiety levels. Communication challenges due to technology. Now we are communicating virtually, we are having meetings virtually, but you see we have communication issues. There's always benefits in terms of in-person communication. When you have virtual communication, it means that communication, the communication is not really effective. It's not completed. There's a way that there's a role that nonverbal communication plays in terms of making communication effective. So some of these things are lost when we meet virtually. You can have virtual meetings and people will turn off their videos, so you might not even be able to observe their body languages, and so that can also become a challenge. We are also juggling multiple priorities, so we are juggling family, we are juggling our health issues, we are juggling our work issues, and all these can cause a lot of stress. Now, if your organization is not giving you proper information, clear information, then as employees, you're going to get highly stressed because there'll be a lot of confusion, and there'll be a lot of confusion, and it will be very difficult to perform your tasks at work. Then working from home challenges also, there's a lot of loss of control in that aspect. Some of us are not used to working from home, We have so many distractions at home. Children are at home, so there are a lot of interruptions and distractions. There are also challenges in terms of the work-home interface and the home-work interface, because you don't know when to stop working and when to start doing engaging in family activities. So you find that it's not our schedules are not well defined. You know, the way we'd go physically at work from 8 to 5, and then from 5 we know that, yeah, I'm done with work, now I'm going home to do other things. Now it's a bit different. You find that you're even working up to midnight. So we basically, our schedules have been disrupted because of COVID. Yeah, if your organization does not have policies that support all these changes that have been brought about by COVID, it can be highly stressful. It can result in a lot of confusion and a lot of conflict. Now, just to differentiate what mental health is and what mental illness is, people tend to confuse these two terms. So I'll just read the way it is. Mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and be able to make a contribution to his or her community. So that is what mental health is. Mental illness, on the other hand, is a health condition that changes a person's thoughts and feelings and behavior, yeah, or behavior. And this causes the person significant distress and impairs daily functioning. So there's a difference between mental health and mental illnesses. We see so many people confusing these two terms. So yeah, take note of that. What causes mental illnesses? We have several factors that cause mental illnesses. So you cannot have one factor triggering depression or anxiety. So many other things have to come in. For example, biologically, you could be genetically predisposed to getting depression or getting anxiety disorders. Yeah, sometimes you might be having, like, for example, some non-communicable diseases like chronic pain disorder, for example, which can make you have, rather, it can predispose you to getting anxiety and depression. Yeah, then you have psychological causes of mental illness. So when you look at that, you're looking at your perceptions. How do you perceive situations? How do you manage your stress? Do you have healthy coping mechanisms? Yeah. What kind of belief systems do you have? Are they helpful belief systems or are they unhelpful belief systems? How do you regulate our emotions? What kind of information are we consuming? Right now, there's so much negative information on social media, in the news and stuff. Are we consuming all that information, or are we trying to regulate or limit our access to such information? So those are some of the things that can cause us mental illnesses. When you look at the social aspects, you find that what is the quality of our interpersonal relationships? Are we fighting at home? Is the family environment stable? Yeah. How are we feeling? What is our social economic status? People have lost their jobs. So that means they're suffering from high stress levels because they don't know where they're going to get their next meal, yeah, and pay their bills. So all these components will actually trigger mental illnesses. But what are some of these mental disorders that we're experiencing right now because of COVID? Because of COVID, depression cases have gone up, as well as anxiety. Depression and anxiety usually co-occur, but sometimes you can have depression alone or you can have anxiety alone. Suicide is also very common, and it's common when in people who are depressed, but someone can also attempt suicide or complete suicide without any mental disorder. We are also seeing an increase in the use of substances, or substance use disorders. So many people are getting dependent on the use of substances like alcohol, marijuana, and the other substances of choice. Then because people are now losing loved ones in quick succession, we have had cases whereby families have lost several members in quick succession because of COVID. This can present what we call persistent complex bereavement disorder. So they do not have enough time to mourn their loved ones, so they are suffering from multiple losses and they suffer from what we call bereavement overload. And this can complicate the grieving process. Now I'll talk about depression because it's a very common disorder or common mental illness that we see right now. So depression basically is a mood disorder that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. So for you to qualify or for you to be diagnosed with depression, you must have these symptoms for at least 2 weeks, every day or almost every day. So some of the symptoms include low mood, which is what we all know. You know, people say that I'm depressed because, you know, I'm feeling low. Yeah. But there's also loss of pleasure in the things that we've once enjoyed doing. Yeah. So for example, if you loved watching movies or if you loved socializing, you'll find that you have no pleasure in engaging in such activities. There's also the aspect of social withdrawal. So because of just the way that depression presents, people do not want to associate with other people. They want to stay alone and stay in that, you know, in that space where they're just alone and they're feeling low. And so they will tend to socially withdraw. They will have problems with sleep. They will either sleep too much or sleep too little. They'll also suffer from low energy. But what is characteristic of depression is the feelings of worthlessness and guilt. Yeah. People who are depressed are always feeling worthless, they're feeling hopeless, and they have some self-loathing going on with them. Then they'll always have trouble with concentrating, so they will not even be able to carry out tasks as they should be, as required, because of problems with clear thinking. They'll always think about death if depression becomes severe. So they'll either have, they'll always probably be thinking about dying, or they'll start planning how to commit suicide. Yeah. Now, depression in men presents differently. So I thought that probably I could highlight this. And the reason for this is because men, when men have a lot of emotional stress, they tend to suppress it. And so when it becomes too much, they express it outwards. So they tend to act out. And they usually act out by having, you know, anger bursts or becoming very aggressive. Men also engage in very reckless behaviors and addictive behaviors. So you'll find that men are gambling, or they're engaging in extramarital affairs, you know, and then they will also engage in alcoholism. They also become escapists. So you'll find that men will also exhibit behaviors that are addictive, but are seen as appropriate, you know. Now, what makes it different from the appropriateness of that behavior is because they tend towards being obsessions, yeah? So you'll find that a man will become a workaholic, or a man will spend hours and hours at the gym working out, and you're thinking, okay, what is happening with this man? It could be a sign of depression. Men will also have, will exhibit inappropriate behaviors, so they'll engage in bullying, sexual harassment, for example, or criminal behaviors. Women tend to direct their emotional stress inward, so they will engage in crying, they'll be feeling very sad, and they'll have this cycle of negative thinking. So they're processing negative thoughts over and over again, which we call ruminative thinking. Women are also known to binge on junk food. And of course, yeah, they will look for all the oily foods and all the sugary foods to feel better. Now, in children, I'm pointing this out because whatever happens at home will affect us at work. So if we find that our children are not behaving in a way that we understand, then it might have an impact in the way that we behave at work. So some of the ways in which children manifest depression is having somatic symptoms. So you'll find that a child will complain of stomach aches or headaches, but when you take them to hospital and they're tested, nothing is seen. You know, they're told they're totally healthy. So that could be a pointer to depression. Children will also socially withdraw, and they will be very, very sensitive to rejection, and they'll tend to act out a lot. So they'll be crying out, and, you know, they'll just appear quite irritable. Now, sometimes you can have depression, and I mean, it cannot be, it's not very obvious to everyone, yeah? And these are the people that commit suicide, and you're thinking, okay, we didn't see this coming, yeah? But the truth is they have been battling with depression for a very long time, but it's been hidden, yeah? But how is it hidden? So some of these people will present with chronic lower back pains and chest pains. Sometimes you'll find that these people will binge on the internet, and they'll not be reading, they'll not be reading useful things, for example, on the internet. So probably they'll be watching pornography, or they'll just be, just on social media doing things that do not add value. Women are known to engage in shopping sprees, so they'll buy several pairs of shoes which they won't even need, and then shoplifting also is one of the ways in which people with depression, people with depression manifest with, shoplifting. And the reason for this is because they're just looking for a high. They're looking for something that will make them feel that they have a sense of control over their lives. Now, anxiety is intense. It's an intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. And basically, during periods of crisis, like now during COVID-19, anxiety is very common. So when you're having a crisis, when you're having highly stressful situations, many people will have anxiety. And it's really a natural reaction to a threat, yeah? And this is basically to help us with survival. So it triggers the fight-flight response, and this basically helps us to survive. But now what happens is it becomes pathological when it's prolonged, and therefore it affects our functioning, yeah? Some people who have certain personality traits might be more prone to anxiety. For example, people who are perfectionists, people who overanalyze situations. So during this period of COVID, if you're overanalyzing the wearing of masks, for example, you might end up becoming very anxious. So if you wear one mask, you might feel maybe one mask is not enough. Maybe I need to wear two. Maybe I need to wear an N95 mask, and then I add another surgical mask, such kind of things. And this can actually increase your anxiety level. So how does it develop? There's a threat. So in this case, we have COVID. So the COVID-19 is a threat, right? Okay. Then it changes our thoughts. It affects our thoughts. So for example, we are thinking, I might get infected with COVID. I may die of COVID, yeah? Probably don't have a robust immune system to fight COVID. And this will affect how we feel. So we'll tend to feel anxious. We'll be very scared. We'll start feeling, we'll be very nervous. We'll have palpitations. We'll get, we'll have palpitations, for example. No, those are the physical reactions. How are we going to feel? We're going to feel scared, and it will affect our behavior because we'll socially withdraw, for example, or we'll probably, exaggerate the way in which we observe the COVID protocols. So this is how anxiety basically develops, and it becomes a vicious cycle because one negative thought will trigger several other negative thoughts. So what are the signs and symptoms of anxiety? You have the physical symptoms, which I've just mentioned, the shaking, the sweating, heart racing, you're unable to sleep. For example, you'll feel dizzy, especially when you're having a panic attack. You'll feel like you're about to die because of the way in which a panic attack presents. You'll have also behavioral symptoms, so you'll tend to avoid the triggers. So if you're scared of COVID, for example, you'd want to avoid public spaces, you lock yourself in the house, or you'll avoid touching surfaces. You go to the supermarket, you don't want to touch the trolleys, you're just avoiding the triggers. And then you'll also seek reassurance by checking. So you're checking the internet for information. You're checking your body for any signs of illness, yeah? You're checking all over for, for things that will prove that you're in control. But what it serves to do is just increase your anxiety more and more. And of course, you'll become very irritable because you feel that you have a loss of control. So you'll tend to be very irritable and very, very restless. Now, I'll skip this, but basically these are the general symptoms of mental illnesses. So I'll skip this because of time, because I've mentioned some of them in depression and anxiety. Now, what is the treatment for mental disorders? When you're having a mental disorder, you're basically, the biopsychosocial model is used in the treatment of mental disorders. So depending on the severity of your mental illness, you will be given medication by a psychiatrist. Then of course you'll go for psychological treatment, which is basically counseling to help you cope with mental illness and to help you develop healthy coping mechanisms. And then there's also the social aspect of the treatment of mental disorders. I cannot overemphasize this point. Social support is really, really important in mental health, in the treatment of mental health, in the management of mental health, and even in the prevention of mental health disorders. Now, how does mental health affect employee behavior? I mentioned that when you're depressed or when you're anxious, you have the reduced ability to concentrate. Yeah, so you'll not be able to complete your tasks. You'll also not be able to, be effective in the way that you do your work. So you'll not have optimal performance. Now you'll find that you'll also increase. There'll be need for additional supervision because, of course, you're not doing your tasks as required. You'll always be tired, lethargic, low energy. Of course, this will be interpreted as low motivation, and this can land you into trouble at the workplace. You're falling sick all the time, so you're taking days off from work, which will impact your work. Yeah, you have daily workplace stressors. We all experience stress at the workplace, but someone with a mental illness or a mental disorder will find it very, very difficult to deal with these daily workplace stressors. And this can actually cause a lot of problems in their productivity, in their motivation levels. You'll find that they'll also have, they'll also be reporting thoughts of suicide or self-harm to work and colleagues. So be on the lookout. If a colleague mentions something about suicide, or probably they'll tell you that they attempted to harm themselves or they cut themselves because they were feeling stressed, this is already a red flag, and you should actually find them help. Now, employees will also develop I don't give a damn attitude. I mean, they're too stressed to even think of the consequences of their behavior, so they'll not even care what will happen to them. Yeah, they'll be it will affect the quality of interpersonal relationships at work because they will be very rigid in the way that they think. It will be very, very difficult for them to work as a team, and this will also impact the team performance. Yeah, they'll also not take criticisms very positively, and this will always impact their performance. Now, if we don't take care of the mental health of our employees, it will affect the productivity at the workplace. Yeah. So as employers, what do? You need to invest in mental health, the mental health of employees, in order to get a return on investment. And this return on investment comes in the form of improved health and productivity. Remember, when your employees are happy, they're productive. And when they're productive, they're successful. When they're successful, of course, the whole organization will be impacted. The bottom line of the organization will be impacted. Now, what are some of the consequences of poor mental health at the workplace? If your employees are not happy because they're mentally sick, they're physically sick, it will definitely impact the workplace. People will not be happy at the workplace. Relationships will be affected. The productivity will be affected as well. Yeah, there'll be so many errors. Your employees will be making so many errors, and there'll be accidents at the workplace. Yeah, there'll be poor decision making. So you'll find that even your clients will experience this. Yeah, this kind of decision making that is poor. So you'll find that you might end up losing clients. There'll also be the development of a bad organizational culture. Why? Because if an employee is not happy, they'll also not reflect the same when they're dealing with your clients. You'll have so many disciplinary cases at the workplace. I've talked about how men can sexually harass others if they're depressed. Yeah, that can present a disciplinary problem. Yeah, and of course, it will impact the motivation and the morale of the team. Now, there'll also be so many cases of absenteeism. People will be stay away from work because either they are sick or they just, when you're depressed, of course, you cannot work. So you'll always call in sick. Others will experience what we call presenteeism. So they're sick, but they're still coming to work because probably they want to keep their jobs. They don't want to be disciplined because of not turning up for work. And when they're present, when an employee experiences presenteeism, it means that they're not even productive. So it is even worse than absenteeism. So it's very, very important for everyone to be present, yeah? Happy, healthy, and present at the workplace. So how do we cope with all this anxiety? How do we cope with anxiety? How do we cope with depression during this period? So at the individual level, it is very important to learn about mental health. Mental health awareness is very important because when we understand ourselves, we are able to help others. If we are able to spot certain things in other people that might tell us that this person needs help, yeah? Now, I've already talked about too much information. We are suffering from infodemic, you know, in the midst of this pandemic. So there's so much negative news around. People are going to social media to look for information about COVID, about the vaccines. It gets overwhelming. So limit your usage of the internet, for example. You can even set aside time. You say that probably I will only access the internet at this particular time for about 10 minutes, and I will not read information about deaths or about infection rates, you know, or about what is happening in Brazil or whatever, yeah? So limit the usage and don't start, do not read upsetting information before bedtime or in the middle of the night when you wake up, you go to the internet and you start reading information about COVID. You will only affect your sleep quality and increase your anxiety levels. It's very important to take care of your body. So take deep breaths, get adequate sleep. Ensure that you sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a day. It's very, very important. It improves your mood, it lowers your anxiety, and also improves, it lowers your anxiety and also gives you a general sense of well-being, and it also elevates your energy. Also check your sleep environment. Before you sleep, optimize your sleeping space. So check your lighting, ensure that there's no noise, look at it, ensure that the temperature is good, you know, is comfortable for you to sleep. Avoid the use of alcohol and drugs. So avoid using caffeine, for example. Caffeine will only increase being a stimulant, it will increase your anxiety. Interact with nature. Nature has been found to be very therapeutic. So go outside and take a walk. Walk on the grass, go to Karura and take a walk. It will also help you to stay away from your phone and from social media. And it just has its own therapeutic benefits. When you're walking again outside there, you're getting some vitamin D, which is very good for your immune system, and especially during this time of COVID. In terms of exercise, I cannot overemphasize the importance of exercise. Exercise has been shown to reduce anxiety and depression, yeah? And the benefits go beyond even the time that you exercise. So it can go for months. The benefits can go for months, yeah? When you're exercising, do not engage in high intensity exercises for a prolonged period of time because it will increase fatigue, it will increase tension. So aim for low to moderate exercise, so that you feel like you still have some energy to keep going. Eat well as well. Avoid eating processed food. There's a link between diet and mental health or mental illness. When you eat highly processed foods, you're basically raising your risk of getting depression, yeah, and anxiety. So eat healthy, vegetables, fruits, nuts, healthy fats, yeah, and properly hydrate. It's very, very important that during this time of COVID, you maintain your connections, yeah? And sometimes you're socially isolated, like right now we have curfew, we are working from home. So how do you maintain these connections? You can do video calls, yeah? You can do WhatsApp calls, you can do Zoom calls. Now, I want to emphasize on the importance of video, you know, like video calls or, you know, yeah, where you can be able to see the other person. Because of the communication aspect, you're able to observe the other person's body language. You can pick something from the tonation of their voice, for example. So that helps you to make communication very effective. And of course, when you see each other, you tend to become happier than, and it's more personalized than sending an SMS, which is quite impersonal in a way. Yeah. Now, create a routine, adopt a very a regular routine. And this helps you basically to focus on what you can control. A routine helps you to feel like you have a sense of control over what you do. So adopt a routine and stick to it. Stay positive. So look at the quality of your thoughts. What are you telling yourself? Are you catastrophizing, for example? Are you saying that COVID will get me, I will die because when I have a comorbidity? So I mean, I have comorbidities, so if I get COVID, I'll die. Stay positive and tell yourself, you know, if I'm thinking this way, if I'm thinking in a negative way, then I can flip it over and think more positively. Probably I can tell myself that even if I have a comorbidity, even if I have high blood pressure and I get COVID, I can still be able to boost my immune system by doing ABCD. Yeah. Right now I'm taking care of myself. I'm eating healthy. And so even if I get COVID, I'll be able to fight it. Yeah. So stay positive and always think about also the positive things that are happening to us right now. It's all not, I mean, all is not gloom and doom because there are certain things that have been positive or that have emerged as positive things because of this pandemic. For example, we didn't know certain aspects about ourselves, yeah, but now we know that probably we are more stronger than we thought. During this time of COVID, we have probably adopted healthy habits, yeah, like working out. Some people never used to work out, but now they're working out. Some people never used to eat healthy, now they're eating healthy. So adopt that attitude of gratitude. Think of the things that are positive in your life right now. You're alive right now. You have a family intact, yeah? You're healthy. Those are some of the things you need to think about that will help to improve your general sense of well-being. Also engage in activities that are meaningful and give you a sense of achievement. So if you want to do a certain cause, if you've always wanted to do a certain cause, you can engage in, you know, you can enroll for that cause right now and do it. It will give you a sense of achievement, which will also, of course, improve your self-esteem and improve your general sense of well-being. And of course, follow the government protocols. Now, don't forget to engage in your hobbies, yeah, while practicing social distancing. So if you love watching movies, if you love knitting, if you love cooking, do that, yeah. Social support, I've already talked about it. When you're working at home, working from home or even at work, have some buffer time. So take some breaks in between to just recharge so that you're able to remain productive. And also it will help to also lower your stress levels. And in turn, it will lower your anxiety levels. Always plan your time well. And especially if you're working from home, ensure that there's time for work and there's time for family, yeah? So do not allow your schedule to be distorted or disrupted, yeah? Engage in relaxation exercises when you feel anxious. So you can take deep breathing, you can do deep breathing exercises. So you can take long, deep breaths and then you exhale slowly. And you can repeat that even 5 times or 7 times until you feel that you're calm. You can journal your fears. You can journal your thoughts. If you feel that you're not processing your thoughts well, just take out your journal and just write down whatever it is. It doesn't have to be in any particular order, but as long as you're writing it on that journal, it helps you to be able to process, yeah? And sometimes it also helps to just stay still and enjoy the moment, yeah? If you have any chronic illnesses, for example, hypertension, diabetes, always keep your clinical appointments and seek professional help if you feel that you cannot be able to cope with the stress and anxiety. Now, at organizational level, what can employers do? It's very important for employers to spread awareness about mental health and mental health disorders. So if you're able to communicate regularly, even via email, coping tips or psychoeducating your employees on what is happening in the world, how they can stay safe, how they can remain mentally healthy. It's very, very important to keep this communication going via email, posters at work, or whatever means of communication that you have at work. It's very important. You can over communicate, and over communicating is not bad. It just helps to put people in a position of power, because information is power. As long as the information is from trusted sources and it is legitimate, yeah. Have appropriate policies in place. How many of you have got a mental health policy in place? It's very important to have this policy at the workplace. It will solve a lot of issues, yeah. Have a health and safety policy in place. Right now, during this COVID period, what are some of the protocols that your organization has laid out for employees to observe in order to remain healthy and safe, yeah? And to reduce infection rates at work, or reduce infection risks at work. Bullying and sexual harassment policies. I've already said that, the employees that were there before COVID are very, very different from the employees you're having right now, because of all these challenges that they've been going through, or all these challenges that you're going through. Some of them will exhibit their stress through bullying and sexual harassment. So do you have this policy in place? Yeah. Do you have a grievance handling policy in place? You'll have so many disciplinary cases at the workplace because, of course, of poor mental health, if not well handled. So do you have those policies in place? Yeah. Have a culture, an open culture that supports employee mental health, that supports positivity, a culture of psychological safety, whereby employees feel safe to express their opinions, to express their thoughts about anything to do with the organization, without fear of being judged, or fear of being disciplined, or fear of getting into trouble. So have that kind of culture at the workplace. Have open communication channels, and be very supportive as managers. Prioritize wellness. This is very, very important. It helps in enhancing the feeling of well-being in employees. If you have psychologists in place, you can engage them, and it will help your employees a great deal in terms of dealing with their mental health challenges. Offer online training opportunities. I talked about engaging in meaningful activities. So online training opportunities right now, they're cheaper, and it will help your employees to feel that something is happening, something positive is happening to them. They've achieved something during this period of COVID. Also have some events that can motivate employees. So you can have fun events, for example. You can have some team building events. They could be online, they could be, you can also meet somewhere outside and just catch up in order to just motivate employees, and to help them to feel that they still belong to the organization, and you're all together in all this, yeah? It's very important for HR and also managers, supervisors to regularly check in with the employees, ask them how they're feeling, yeah? Go a little bit deeper, not being too intrusive, but just a little bit deeper. Ask them, how are they doing? How are they coping at family level? Do they have any concerns, that need to be addressed? So have that kind of thing happening at the workplace, because it helps employees to feel that they're well taken care of, and that the management is actually, the management actually is concerned about them, yeah? And also discuss mental health at the workplace. Reduce the stigma around mental health. Leaders should also at least become a little bit vulnerable and even share their struggles, their mental health struggles, yeah? If you're a leader and probably you're struggling with anxiety, or you're struggling with depression, it will always be good to share with people at the workplace, because when you open up as a leader, it will also trigger something positive at the workplace. People will feel that they can be more open to share their mental health struggles at the workplace. Yeah, and of course, this will serve to destigmatize mental illness. You can have group debriefing sessions whereby you can always share your struggles with mental health issues. We are all having challenges at work. For example, you can even share struggles about how mothers are coping with children at home while working from home. So you can have such kind of group debriefing sessions at the workplace, and these are really, really helpful. You can also have mental health advocates at the workplace. These are mental health champions who can be able to organize mental health activities around the workplace. They can organize for regular screening of mental health issues, for example, to see who is at risk of getting depressed, who is at risk of probably getting an anxiety disorder. And this will now help you to bring on board professionals to help the employees. Be very, very flexible in terms of the working hours, in terms of location. Like right now, COVID has taught us that we don't really need to go to work physically. So we can always be flexible. We can allow our employees to work from home, even post-COVID, yeah, depending on the kind of work that they do, unless their work requires that they have to be at work physically. But for now, we have been taught by COVID to be very, very flexible. And of course, the working environment has to be very conducive for the health and safety of employees. So provide masks, sanitizers, and other things, yeah, that are needed to keep employees safe and healthy. Also provide financial literacy education. These are challenging times. The cost of living has gone up. We are surviving on very little income. People have taken pay cuts. So as employers, you can also have this financial literacy education to help your employees know how to manage their finances. Yeah, with the little income that they have, how do they manage it effectively? Yeah, and this will reduce a lot of stress levels and anxiety levels. And finally, employers, take care of yourselves as well. People think that their managers are invincible. They can't get sick mentally. They can, yeah. It's also very stressful for them during this time. And so HR, managers, supervisors, take care of your mental health. In terms of supporting our children, talk to them about mental health, and be very open and with them about COVID and what is happening, but make it very age appropriate. Don't alarm them unnecessarily. Keep them healthy, and also establish a very healthy routine for them so that they feel that they have a sense of stability and control. If you have healthy employees, what are the benefits? Of course, there's increased productivity. There'll be positive work relationships. Your customers will be happy. The bottom line of your organization will be impacted. So you'll have increased revenue, increased profits and sales. You'll have less disciplinary cases. There'll be enhanced team cohesion, for example. There'll be better decision making. There'll be less errors and accidents at work. So the benefits of mentally healthy employees and physically healthy employees are immense. So finally, I will leave you with this quote. If you're depressed, you are living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And if you're at peace, you're living in the present. So what causes us to be depressed is because we are ruminating about the past. Yeah, things that we have no control over. Why are we anxious? Because we are thinking about the future. We are catastrophizing about the future. We don't even know what the future holds, right? So we should not be anxious. We should not be thinking about things you cannot control. So what you can control is what is here and now. So focus on the here and now, focus in the present, focus in the moment. And that is how you're going to remain mentally healthy and sober. So thank you for that. And over to you, Grace.
Thank you very much, Christina. That was interesting. That was intense. And I believe we have really, really learned. It's already 9 p.m. Allow me to just say this webinar is brought to you today courtesy of Balcon Housing and Stallion Construction Company Limited. They are our sponsors of this session. And thank you very much, Christine. We have learned so much. I think people are soaking into so much into the information that we don't even have many questions as it is. And it's already 9. I can take one question if you may. If you have a question, kindly type it chap on the chat so that then we can take one question. Charity, I will speak to you shortly and answer your question. Let me just see whether anyone has asked anything. Okay, so It's 9 p.m. and allow us to just acknowledge there's somebody who is asking, Viola, kindly elaborate on the work hours, on the after hours activities people can engage in at this point in time. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, so you can engage in, that is in terms of employers.
I think employees, I think people just generally.
Oh, okay. So you can engage in exercises, for example. You can meet your children at home, engage in activities, you know, within the home setup. You can play board games, for example. You can watch a movie together. You can engage in a hobby, yeah. In terms of employers, you can also have team building activities as long as they're in a safe environment where the risk of COVID infections are very low. So you can, I mean, there are so many team building activities basically, but probably at this time of COVID, you can make them contactless so that you don't people don't end up infecting others with COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, we're also doing team buildings online, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Caroline is asking, as a mom, how does one juggle between work and home duties? It feels overwhelming at times.
It is indeed overwhelming, and when you're working from home, it gets very complicated because, you know, children will be coming to you for attention. Some of them are in online class, are having online classes right now. So you're having a meeting and you have to go connect your children to online class. So it's basically about delegation of activities. So delegate what you can. It will also help you to be able to plan your time well, and also educate your children that if I'm in a meeting, for example, do not disturb. Yeah. So keep them busy with something, some interesting activities that can keep them engaged when you're having a work-related meeting, for example, or when you need to focus. Yeah. You can also probably wake up a little bit earlier and work a bit. Yeah. If you're forced to do that because of the working from home dynamics. So you can maybe wake up an hour earlier to be able to finish up probably a certain project before the rest of the family wakes up. Yeah. But delegation is very important for you to remain sane as well.
If I go somewhere.
Benson Wainaina is asking, not Benson Wainaina, Boniface Musembi, how can HR professionals ensure we don't enter into mental illness as we try to help employees?
So it's about listening to yourself. How are you feeling? Yeah. And that's why it is very important to pause and reflect at the end of the day. Yeah. As a HR, what have you been dealing with throughout the day? What information have you consumed? Yeah. Maybe from the behavior of your employees, from all the workplace stresses. So it basically helps you. It helps when you sit back, you pause and reflect on your day. Yeah. If you feel you're not dealing well with certain aspects of the workplace or certain challenges at the workplace, then it's important to seek professional help. You can also employ the things I've already talked about, the tips I've already talked about, yeah, in terms of building your mental resilience. So engage in exercises, relaxation exercises, social support, discuss with someone that you trust about what you're feeling, about what you're going through, yeah. If it's something that is really stressing you at work, then you can also talk to your supervisor, or you can even consult someone who is an authority in the area that you're struggling with. And that can really help you in terms of managing your stress levels and hence your mental health. Yeah.
Okay. It's 9:05 and I will be taking the almost last question. Benson, you can get in touch with me and I'll be able to hook you up. Sabina is asking, how should we handle stigma, especially when you're being stigmatized by people who you are close to and they are not literate?
Stigmatized because of COVID?
I have no idea. It is just as much. Sabina, Sabina Njagi, is it COVID related or stigmatized because of what? Okay, June, for the ones who lost employees due to COVID-19, how do they raise up, obtain their relevance and identity as a person? How do we pick up themselves up and sojourn forward? Jane Mary Ruguru, we will be discussing Sacked So What in the season 2. So I think we can answer question best because you're going to share with you ideas on what you can do to deal with job losses and loss of income and stuff like that. So allow us not to engage in that right now. And yes, Sabina is confirming that yes, maybe mental health issues. No, sorry, yes, even mental health, like the question on stigma. How do you deal with stigma, whether mental health or COVID?
Okay, so basically stigma, okay, you cannot change the perceptions of people at that particular time. But what really helps in fighting stigma is information. So educating them on the mental illnesses, yeah, how they present themselves, what kind of effects do they have on the person and even the people around, yeah. Even COVID, it's all about education. So educating people that COVID it doesn't attack, it doesn't infect specific people. It infects, I mean, everyone is vulnerable, basically, yeah. We can all get infected with COVID, yeah. I remember a week ago, I went to town and I was talking to a little girl who came asking me for 10 shillings, yeah? And she was not wearing a mask. And they asked her, why isn't she wearing a mask? And she said that she was told not to wear a mask by her mom. Then I told her that, you know, you'll get COVID if you don't wear a mask. And she said, no, I'll not get infected by COVID. I asked her why, and she said, COVID only affects rich people. Yeah, so you can already see there can be stigma, yeah, because of that, yeah. So it's very important to educate the public, and that's why even as employers, keep educating your employees on COVID, on mental illnesses regularly, yeah. Information is power. Once they understand what happens when you have COVID, once they understand that anyone can get a mental illness, then they will not be in a position to stigmatize other people. They'll be more empathetic when someone has a mental illness or when someone has COVID. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Everyone is saying, can we get the notes? I've seen Jacinta asking about how do you know that you have anxiety? I think Christina had discussed that on how you can tell that you have anxiety, and we will share with you her presentation. So thank you very much, guys. That will be it for today. Thank you very much, Balcon Housing and Stallion Construction, as well as, by the way, next week we have giveaways from Kapula Mintito. We are on to a beautiful start. So asanteni sana Kapula Mintito from Mombasa, who will have a giveaway for our audience next week. Asanteni sana Balcon Housing for your time. For your sponsorship for this session. Thank you very much, Christina. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this, and we hope to work with you more and more. We have to normalize mental health, right?
Yes.
Yes, we are normalizing mental health. We are very much our audience for the support. And we are hoping that next week you shall be with us, and the weeks after that, let's talk, let's engage, let's make a difference. So asanteni sana, and have yourself a lovely night. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Christina.